Hello everybody, here we are today talking about the NHL Draft Lottery and the results of that. So before we get started, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So yesterday, the NHL Draft Lottery took place and we got to see a little bit of something new, and not even new, just something where I was happy about the fact that there weren't any major changes to the draft order, and it was kind of refreshing to not have to go on social media and see how awful the league was in somebody's eyes because their team ended up getting the short end of the stick. A lot of people end up getting really defensive when their team has the best overall odds of getting the top pick falls to, let's just say, third, as they feel like they're getting robbed of generational talent. And to be fair, everybody wants their team to be good, and I know some people will say, oh, I'm never going to watch hockey again. We know that's not true. It's just an emotional response as they're trying to deal with the fact that maybe they are losing a generational talent that could help them along. But with there being no change to the draft order, that means the San Jose Sharks get the first overall pick. So with the first overall pick, the San Jose Sharks will select. We don't officially know at the moment, but it looks like probably Macklin Celebrini, and this is big because of the fact that he is viewed as a big game-changing talent for any team that selects him. And the Sharks, of course, are in a spot where I don't believe they've ever had the first overall pick, so if they're able to get a game-changing player with that pick, it's going to be huge. And if I read it correctly off the NHL's website, this is the first time that they've had the second overall pick or higher since 1997 when they picked Patrick Marleau, so not a bad deal there and how that played out. And here they are again, hoping that a high-end pick can get things turned around for them. This was a bad year and was a continuation of multiple bad seasons as they end up finishing dead last in the league and are a team that had more regulation losses than they did have points on the year. One of their worst seasons in franchise history, and just kind of in this spot right now where it's the opposite of what it used to be. As from 1998 through 2019, they missed the playoffs on just 2 occasions. So like I've said before during the channel, and during videos, I should say, the Sharks growing up were one of the teams that were going to be good to great, and now looking at this team, they really need some players to step up. Celebrini could be one of those, and on top of that too, we've seen a lot of these Sharks prospects get some NHL opportunities this season, so you'd imagine that they're going to be in a better spot next season as you hope things go well. Now, Mike Greer could go out there and make a different pick, but I think with how everything's gone for the team in recent years during his tenure, a lot of it has been going around the fact that maybe the returns haven't been as good as they've wanted when they traded players away. So I'd have to feel like he's going to go for the easy pick here. And I would just imagine too that the fan base would be irate. You would really need somebody to be able to play well early on, because if Celebrini ends up going later in the draft and plays well for that team, not going to be looking good for you as a Sharks team. I think is still probably safe to say at least 3 years away from the playoffs, if not more, because a lot of the teams in their division aren't really focused on rebuilding anytime in the near future. And some of these teams look like they're probably going to be good for at least, again, probably 2 or 3 years in the future. And then another thing that was really nice too to see was the fact that the league is not rigged. And I know a lot of people were going to use that excuse if the Hawks ended up getting the first overall pick, as they had the third best odds to get it last season, and ended up, of course, winning the draft lottery to select Connor Bedard, a generational talent that other teams would have loved to have had. But the good news is, with no major changes, the Hawks end up getting the second overall pick. They'll still get a good player, but you get to shy away from all those things where there would have been this big market that had just had the first overall pick, winning it and possibly getting another huge talent to speed up the rebuild. I am happy that nothing like that happened here, because again, I do think, whether or not it is true, which I don't think it's true that the league is rigged, I do feel like for people that are more on the fringe, or people that might be a little bit more extreme with how they view the league and things like that, they look at these things and it's less of a conspiracy theory and more of reality. So just by not that happening, I'm just very happy. And then some other news, of course this isn't really draft lottery related, but more draft related, is the fact that the Utah-based team is going to have a top 10 pick. They are getting the 6th pick, and I'm interested to see what they end up doing in this draft. What they plan on doing, I don't really know, but they are going to be starting a new era in a new state. And I'm hoping by this point they can at least have their brand figured out, because if this is just a guy or a kid holding up a jersey that is going to have the NHL logo and say NHL Utah, it's not going to be very fun for a young man to look back at, as it's something you want to see. It's having that brand right there to know you're part of something. Whereas this team saying, oh, we're still trying to figure everything out. Not really something that I'd be thrilled about if I was a first round pick. And I know that their young guys are going to be making millions of dollars and living the good life, but I think it kind of sets a message that this is more established than it being a thing that was thrown together last minute, if they're not even able to have a team name and a team logo. I know they said they might start the season without one, but I just do not see a world where they would do that. The NHL wants to be able to have a brand ready to go, and if it does this, it's going to look bad. As for some other things, we're going to be looking at the fact that this is the last centralized draft in the league. I don't remember what year it started, but it's been going on for a very long time. We did a video at some point about it, I believe, and it is really unfortunate that this is the end of it, but we talked about too, with the pros and the cons of everything. What it comes down to is if important decisions need to be made, especially around free agency, getting your guys back to whatever city they're in, especially with the weather, with possible delays in, air travel and things like that, it's kind of a pain in the butt to deal with. So I kind of get where this is headed, but at the same time too, it's kind of a tradition that we all have probably enjoyed, at least somewhat, maybe not to the extent some other people have. In fact, I think most people probably could care less, but it is something neat that is coming to an end, and it is going to end in Vegas. That's where the draft is, I think. So yeah, basically the end of an era is coming up here in about 2 months. Sad to see. And then the final talking point is more related to the draft itself, but Tej Aginla is going to be in this draft and is a projected first-round pick. I've seen people take him as high as 6th overall in the draft. I don't really know where he's going to fall because, again, we have some weird draft picks, especially last year. I think what a lot of people talked about what the Coyotes did was a little bit weird and they shook things up, but with there not being a big change in the draft order, you're going to have to wonder a bit if Aginla falls to 9th. Who's there? The Calgary Flames. Would they want to necessarily pick him? I'm not saying they would, but his dad was a Hall of Famer. They played 15 years with the team and had a long career where he ended up, having 1,300 points or around that mark. And I just think it would be really cool to see. You don't necessarily get to see that all the time, especially a player of his caliber, that player being Jerome. Maybe we'll see Tej end up having a good career too, but just one of those things that if you're watching the draft and you are familiar, again, with some of the things like with Aginla, some of these other guys that might see their dads have played for other teams, you kind of like to watch out for that and then look at the teams that are on the board and say, oh man, this guy kind of falls in that range of where he'd be in the draft. Maybe something special happened here. But anyway, what are your thoughts on the entire draft lottery? Sharks getting the first overall pick. Are you happy about that? Is the league officially not rigged? Let me know your thoughts on that. All the other stuff we talked about in this video. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. Eagle of Hockey, all right. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.